So we'll kick off. First of all, thanks everyone for joining us. This is the first instalment of Lockdown Learning, which is a series of free webinars that Fruition IT are doing to really kind of keep the community and learning going during this period of time where the kind of usual tech events aren't happening. Just by way of introduction, so my name is Martin, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm one of the directors at Fruition IT. For people that don't know who Fruition IT are, we're a Leeds-based tech and change recruitment firm, and have always been really big about making sure that we are out there and interacting with the tech community and really giving back to the industry that we kind of operate in as well. So today's session is on Agile in lockdown. So we're going to be exploring what to expect from remote Agile teams and really how to use the lockdown kind of period to your advantage, really. Just going to let a couple more people in. Hold on a sec. Cool. So our expert panel of two today, we have Tom Roberts, who has a background, has experience across a variety of software development and Agile-based roles, up to his current role as Scrum Master at the Stars Group. And we're also joined by Steve Trapps, who is a Scrum Master and professional Scrum trainer with scrum.org. I think that's his full title. It's a long landscape business card. Steve and I have known each other for a long time, has a really distinguished career across a variety of industries and roles, all kind of Agile and software delivery based. So firstly, thanks to you two for agreeing to spend some time with us and kind of talk through this kind of topic. How we've set this up is that we've been out talking to our network around what kind of topics and questions people have right now, what sort of challenges people have experienced transitioning their Agile software delivery teams into a fully remote based scenario, and also what kind of allowances people have had to make or should be making during this time as well. So the way that we'll work this is it'll be very conversational. I will go through the topics and pose questions to Tom and Steve. You'll hear their real life experience and their kind of expert views. I would also invite you all to ask any questions that you might have in the group chat box, either just to me or to the group, and we can read those out either if it's appropriate at the time, or we'll save them to the end. We'll have a Q&A session as well. Cool. So let's kick off. So firstly, the first thing that I'd like to explore is how it's been for you, Tom, for you, Steve, just that kind of piece of transition. So going from how things were only a few weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, to this transition to a state where all our teams are now having to be remote. So Tom, how have you found that?
Yeah, so for us, it's kind of been building on top of things that we had already started. So I guess as a business, we did already have some people working remotely, but now it's kind of that remote first. Everyone's in the same position. We're all working remotely, so it's kind of making time to adapt to that kind of new way of working. So that's kind of seen us kind of looking at maybe committing to a bit less work in our sprints and kind of allowing time to inspect and adapt to these new ways of working. But it's been going well, and it's kind of really built this good team spirit, I think.
Well, we're all in this together kind of thing. Yeah.
So I mean, that definitely was how it started to begin with. So we would do things like after lunch, we would kind of just hold a call with each other, just a catch up. So we wouldn't be discussing work. We'd just be just having a chat about things. And actually, that wasn't something we had done before. And now we're making time to actually talk with each other and to get to know each other. So I think in a strange way, working remotely has meant that we've actually come closer together.
Oh, that's good. I mean, up until recently, I was working at Yorkshire Water in Bradford, and we were using Teams and things to talk to normally. It was normally when we were on site, it was, have you done this? Have you done that? And, you just didn't want to disturb people if they had the headphones on or anything. You just send them a message on Teams. So actually what happened when we started working from home was that you couldn't see if they had the headphones on or anything because you couldn't physically see them, but we started talking more as well. And then obviously if people want to answer, they do, and if they don't, or you can ignore them or whatever. But one of the great things that we did, and I'd love to take credit for this, but I can't, unfortunately, we created a virtual pub, and we'd meet at 12 every day in the Winchester, it was called. And depending on your age, the Winchester is obviously from Ada or from Shaun of Dead, which, considering we've got a virus going around and zombies and stuff like that, maybe not the best thing. But we used to do a pub quiz as well. So each day we did 5 questions and started off general knowledge and then music. And it was similar to, I think it might be similar to yours, just people just checking in and how's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling, kind of thing. I mean, we had the daily scrums and everything and going through, but it was just like, hey, how is everyone? Yeah, it is a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of, we are in this together. So
yeah, I think stuff like that's really important because, I mean, especially with us all being quite isolated and shut in our homes, it's just making time to connect with people and keep those relationships that you will have built whilst in work, and you kind of just want to keep those strong.
Yeah. Have you had any instances of, well, I don't want to say conflict, but I'm going to say it anyway, but challenges of where, you know how at work where you can tell if somebody's rubbing up somebody the wrong way, or, you know, you can tell if someone's stressed. And have you had any dealings where, I don't know, so there has been a bit of conflict? Or has it been, everyone's been smiley, nice, and hey, isn't this great working from home because I'm getting back 2 hours a day from my daily commute that I didn't have before? So
yeah, maybe we're still in the honeymoon period. I've not seen. It's been pretty good going so far.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of creativity so lots of people have come up with ideas for things that we could be doing. So kind of like you with your kind of your pub meetups. We were discussing the idea of doing a kind of through the keyhole, doing a tour around people's houses.
Brilliant. You have to make sure the house is tidy beforehand. And if you've got kids at home, I mean, my kids were doing ballet and all this kind of stuff. Get out, Dad, what are you doing? And stuff. So but the through the keyhole is a fantastic idea.
We usually have, every payday, we usually have a kind of group breakfast. So we did a kind of killer breakfast quiz where everyone posted, or everyone sent me a picture, a photo of their breakfast. And we had this kind of like, guess whose breakfast this was, kind of quiz format, which was good. I think that social element's really important. Actually, it's been really pleasing that I think lots of organisations are putting more effort into doing that now than they had done before. So it'd be interesting to see whether that continues kind of post-lockdown, and whether we see organisations kind of coming together more often, more socially, outside of work as well.
It's interesting people's opinion of like working from home before this. Oh, working from home, are you? You know, watching Homes Under the Hammer or whatever, or, you know, got an interview, but you don't want to take a day off. I wonder how much this will continue afterwards, because we are experimenting and we're also learning how teams can work remotely from each other and still hopefully deliver. So I wonder post this, and probably because of the way that this is going to play out, you know, if they're going to reduce the amount of home working we have to do, or, you know, we can start going back into industry, whether or not people will choose to work more from home than actually be in an office. And maybe it might switch to be the other way around and say, okay, you have to be in the office on a Wednesday, you know, the rest of the time you work from home, or it's up to you. Because recently I was working, well, not recently, about 2 years ago, I was working in the NHS Digital, and they're wanting to reduce their headcount, not headcount. They want to reduce the number of desks they have in the building. I think they were shifting from 80% capacity down to 60%, and they were worrying at the time, how can we do this? And maybe this is going to be that, what's the word I'm looking for? The catalyst, yeah, to think about how we do work, you know, how we work together remotely. But then I suppose that actually opens up more things to us as a company, as an organization, because suddenly you don't have to be in the geographical location and what's stopping somebody working in Leeds, or sorry, living in Leeds, actually working in London, in I don't know, Stockholm, New York, wherever. You know, I've worked with some people that have actually remote worked into teams into Los Angeles and stuff. So obviously the time difference is different. They worked around that, but you know, I think it's possibly a really good opportunity.
Yeah, I think I can definitely see that happening. But I think one of the challenges might be, so we're all in the same situation at the moment. We're all working remotely, so there's that level playing field.
Yeah,
it'll be a slightly new thing when it's mixed again. So maybe there'll be more weighting towards remote workers than there was before. But there's kind of new challenges when you've got that mix. When you've got a group of people in an office together, you need to kind of make sure that you're including those people who are on the remote call as well.
that's true. That's true.
So I think that if we do start going towards remote working, there'll still be something new that we kind of need to adapt to as well.
Do you think people are working different hours as well? Because I mean, for childcare, somebody I'm talking to a lot, Andy Hiles, another trainer, he works in the afternoon because his wife works in the morning. So there's that childcare switch.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I've seen people who just to break up their day more as well. So it might not necessarily be that there's a family pressure there, but they like to take a bit more time in their day to go do other things and just split up the day. So I guess as an example in our team, when that's happened, it's just making agreements on when those kind of key interaction points might be. Like when are we going to come together as a team and talk? Or how are we going to get in touch with each other or let each other know where we are, so that you're kind of not just waiting around, not knowing if someone's not responding to you or that type of thing.
You're actually not watching Homes of the Hammer. You are actually doing some work, but you've got your head down and you don't want to talk to somebody because it is, you know, you're in a tricky bit of work kind of thing. So have you done anything? Sorry, Martin.
I was just saying, what else have you had to change to kind of translate what you were doing when people were co-located to now where everyone is remote?
I think one of the kind of big obvious ones is just, we used to do a lot of things on whiteboards. So going virtual with those types of tools, so finding virtual ways to do our retrospectives, virtual ways to do our estimation of tickets. So those types of things, but luckily there's lots of tools out there, and I found just there's a community of other people going through the same thing within my business and the wider community. So just been sharing ideas with each other and trying things out.
So what have you been using? I mean, we looked at Jamboard, which is a Google thing for the sharing that the whiteboard thing, and there's also Mural and Miro, which I haven't looked at yet. But yeah,
I was playing around with Miro because I thought it might be a nice kind of virtual whiteboard. So before we had a whiteboard which had loads of information on it. It wasn't just the sprint board. It had like our retro actions when people are on holidays and stuff. But that didn't really kind of get too much traction. So we've kind of done a mixture of things. So we'll do a retro in a tool called Team Retro, and then we will put a post in our Slack channel and we'll pin that post. So it's almost like the pinned things in Slack have become our part of our whiteboard, and then obviously we've got our Jira board, and it's kind of just piecing these things together, but trying to make it as easy to access this stuff as possible. And that's why we're kind of pinning in Slack, because you don't want people to kind of struggle to find this information.
Yeah, you stick it in a wiki and lose it kind of thing, don't you? Or how often do you go to the wiki? Oh, every time we've had a retro because we need to update it kind of thing. So it's how do you make it visual? How do you make it available for people to remember?
Just have a question from Mark, who said that he agrees that the crisis will change the way that many companies and employees work, and working from home may become the norm, and there's tech that helps this. His question is, there's a lot to be said for the spontaneity of walking up to a colleague and having a chat, which can be lost. What are our thoughts on that? And here's Mark.
Yeah, that is, as a Scrum Master, that's kind of where I struggle a little bit working remotely from teams, because I just go talk to people, and it's how do you do that? How do you know if they're available to be talking to? How do you get that moment you're making the coffee or the tea, or how do you integrate? And it is difficult. One of the things that I've asked my teams I've worked with was, what do you need from me? Kind of thing, and just saying, or actually make myself very vulnerable and say, I'm struggling with this. This is how I work. This is how I operate. Help me. What do you need from me? And this is what I'm trying to do. And they've come back with some ideas, and basically, make sure you're updating us where you are, and if we need you, how we can find you. But it is difficult. Tom, have you had any tips or anything like that where it's...
Yeah, well, I think the main way we're handling that is just kind of through using Slack. So with the things you've already mentioned about like keeping people up to date with where you're at, it's just, and obviously this isn't kind of groundbreaking advice, but just sending people messages and trying to do video calls where we can, because when you're just typing a message, it can be quite slow, or things can get misinterpreted. So trying to prioritize doing video calls when you kind of want that deep engagement or sharing of detailed information, but then also actually writing down information as well at times where maybe we don't need to kind of have a immediate exchange with each other, because we've also found that there are so many video calls going on at the moment that it starts to take up quite a lot of time. We're doing all these things to try and encourage communication, and it's taking up a bit more time. So maybe there might be instances where we don't need to do a video call, where maybe we open a thread in Slack and we just put some of the information there, and people can come and put their views in there when they're available. So for the less kind of time sensitive things.
I was talking to a Scrum Master yesterday at RBS, and he was saying he's doing more regular one-to-ones with people. And it's not like help coaching them, but it's just a 5-10 minute conversation. And like, we were doing earlier, like, how are you doing? I'm okay, or okay, fine. And that's it, really. So it's just having that regular pulse, that regular engagement with people.
Yeah.
And making it visible that, hey, well, we're struggling with this. What do you think we could do? What works for you? And working through Slack or work through video, it's different.
Yeah. And you can do that as part of your daily, well, maybe they're not called stand-ups now, but your daily Scrum meetings.
Let's call them what they are. They're a daily Scrum. Yeah. Extreme programming.
But just taking the time to catch up with people at the start of them.
Yeah.
Maybe not strictly sticking to 15 minutes, and just a little time for the team to just say how they're doing.
Yeah, that bonding, that regrouping. But I suppose if somebody is struggling, they're going to have to be quite courageous to say, hey, actually, I'm lonely or whatever, or I'm, I haven't really spoken to anybody. We all have different situations, and I've said about the families, but hey, people do live alone, and if this is the only contact they get with somebody, and they're feeling isolated. So how can we help? So it is difficult, but I suppose if you just ask the team or ask them, what can we do? Make yourselves available.
Yeah, I think that's it. Making yourself available and trying to make that person feel safe and comfortable to come to you or other people if they need to talk.
Yeah,
that's good advice. Thanks for the question, Mark. Keep the questions coming in the comments box, and I will pick them up as we go along. If we just move on to the next kind of topic, which I think we've kind of hinted at, which is what allowances, if any, should be made and factored into planning when the team is now all remote rather than being co-located. And really, I suppose that question comes from some point as to should we reasonably expect less productivity? Should we expect more productivity? What else should we be thinking about making allowances for when we're planning?
Yeah, I don't know if we should be making more allowances just because we're working remotely. Obviously, if people are ill, and we'd have the same allowances if they were physically in the room, or actually hopefully not physically in the room being ill. But if we set ourselves up correctly, and by that I mean we have a strong product vision, we have a clear direction on where we're going, we are looking at what our sprint goals are, and we're doing sufficient backlog refinement so that the team understands what's potentially coming up in the next sprint, and then they can have opportunities, and we can do it via Zoom, or we can do it via Slack to talk about the how it could be done. I don't know if we should be making allowances. Obviously, there's the conversations like this. For example, if myself and Tom were talking about a technical thing and Tom's not available because he's he's physically in a different room to me, I can't see if he's there. There's going to be those circumstances. But whilst we were waiting, I was just writing some notes, and I thought, oh yeah, we should do. And I thought, actually, no, maybe we shouldn't, because the only thing that's changed is how we're communicating. And maybe there could be a slight change there, an allowance for that. But once we get into this new norm, maybe, it should be, like Tom was saying, we work things out on Slack. We have conversations on that. I mean, but those conversations would possibly be happening anyway if we were physically in the same room, because of, we're not necessarily going to be sat next to each other. We could be in a different area. So I don't know. We might need more details in the backlog items. So the product owner, BA, or whoever may need to add more details, but equally the team can add more details in what dependencies that we've got. And that's maybe if there's more dependencies on people that are outside of our team, that we could possibly just go, normally when they're inside the same office, we can just go sit at their desk and wait for them to come back. That could be a little bit difficult. But I don't know. Tom, what do you reckon?
Yeah, so I agree with most of the sentiment, what you're saying, but what I'm thinking is that it's not like you're just throwing out your way of working. You've already established this as a team, so that should continue. But I do think there's a level of adaptation needed. So it's like finding those new technologies to do things that you might have done when you're co-located, and just getting used to that new rhythm. And I think that could have a short-term effect, but I think that's okay. And not to kind of get too alarmed by that. I think you want to look at the kind of long-term trends. And so if velocity goes down in the first or second sprint, maybe that's okay. But as a team, the beauty about how we work is you regularly reflect on how things are gone, and you change things and you adapt. So I think long term, you should see teams coming back to kind of where they were before. But I just think short term that you might kind of see a kind of drop in what teams are delivering, but I wouldn't panic about that. I think it's okay. I think teams should kind of be given that space to kind of just make time to work out what their new norm is.
Yeah, there's a valid comment from Stuart, which is just around, I suppose there's the remote working element, but then there's also the fact that a lot of people that have children have their children at home, and perhaps if it's kind of both parents that maybe have full-time remote roles, and they've got, I don't know, 7 kids kicking about the house at the moment. There's an allowance, and Stuart's point is that you probably need to be much more flexible on when people can work, and the question underneath that is, does that have an impact if people are working at different times? And then the secondary point there is that if we don't make any allowances and alter our expectations in terms of output, and we've got people who are at home with additional strain in terms of family responsibilities, what is there a danger that our expectations are just set too high and not making an allowance for the current circumstance? What do you two think? Is anyone in your teams that you've maybe had to just go, that I appreciate you've got a lot going on, this is my expectation, change?
Well, for me personally, I feel like that's what I'm going through. You might just be able to see here, this is my kind of family timetable, our plan. So we've had to balance our working schedule to make sure that we're still able to look after the kids. So obviously that's had effect on how I used to work before to how I work now. So I've tried to be kind of upfront and it's clear to the team about when I'm working or when I'm looking after my kids as well. And that's kind of why I was saying before, where I think you kind of need to allow time for things to kind of restabilize and for that new norm. So let's say when you're looking at a velocity in a team, that velocity is based on the team working in a certain way. And now there's this new way of working, and maybe that velocity might be slightly different to what it was before because there are new kind of factors at play.
Yeah. But then, as you say, as the team become used to the new norm or actually reflect on, hey, that's not working for us. Could we move planning instead of being at lunchtime? Can we move it to whatever? And, I suppose the teams then roll with those various different situations depending on the team. Specifically, you just have to go through those scenarios in order for you to think, hey, that doesn't work, or hey, that really worked when we did it at 6 o'clock in the morning because the house was really quiet.
Yeah. And like I said, Scrum teams, Agile development teams, we're so well geared for dealing with these situations because we're constantly adapting our ways of working. We're adapting to new product roadmaps, to new people joining teams. That's just kind of how we work. So we're in a good position to kind of get back on our feet again.
Yeah. And I think what we do need to do, though, is keep an eye on that backlog and make sure it's in a healthy state in order to make or to minimize the impact within sprint planning. So like I said before, more backlog refinement potentially if you have to, you want to go down that route. So Scrum Masters working with product owners, working with the BAs, and are we ready to go, and making sure the team know what's potentially coming up. Yeah. So then you don't have those 8-hour sprint planning sessions because, hey, you really would sell your firstborn child to get out of those, especially if you're doing it remotely. So it's being prepared, I suppose. Maybe we should be more prepared, and that's going to be a great lesson, I think, to then bring back into the workplace when we're physically together, because hey, it worked well when we did this, or maybe we change the way that we do work. So it's good, I suppose. One thing actually, have you actually looked at your, and I don't think this would affect it, but have you just reaffirmed what your definition of done is? Because we're not working in isolation, but I just wonder, as a question really, whether or not just to reaffirm, this is what it means when we're done. Does everybody understand it? Because we're now more dependent on everybody else doing it to the same level. It was a conversation I had, but I didn't know if you'd had the same.
No, we've not done that, but I think maybe that's a good point or something to look into. Did you have anything in mind where you thought something might have changed?
No, it was just, it's obviously, I don't think anything would change because it's going to the same quality level, but it's just making the implicit, explicit, making sure that, hey, the fact that Chris always seems to do these items or whatever, and Chris isn't there anymore, and but I need to make sure that I understand what it is that we do, and it's just really reiterating what it means to be done, just so that we all know, because it could be easy for things to slip through, or not that we let our guard down, but it just becomes easier. Is that done? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, fine. And you can't see things moving, or you can't do things, but it's just, maybe we need to improve it. Maybe we haven't looked at it recently, and maybe we need to add in the fact that we're also doing more automation testing, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It was just it was one thing we did. We just not rebased, but we said, right, what's core? What's key to us? It's this, and this. Okay, and let's just double check the definition of done.
So, do you think can you think of like a signal where that you might see when this is necessary?
I'd say if yeah, the quality of the product starts going down, or we're finding bugs that we think, well, how did we miss that, or whatever, or maybe certain things that used to happen when we were on premise, now we're in the cloud, that we're missing, or something along those lines. Something that happened because Dave talked to Bob, and we didn't actually make that explicit. It was just happening anyway. You know, the way that, oh, that always happened when Nick moved this into this environment. Oh, we've missed that in this one because we're now doing that, because that's become part of our responsibilities because we're remote. I don't know. It's just one of those things. But really, it'd be whether or not there's more bugs and the quality of the product is going down, and or actually people are asking more questions about what it means to be done. You know, or they're saying that I'm done. Are you really? Have you updated the documentation? Ah, yeah, but we can't access that because it's on a server somewhere. Well, we're not done. Maybe we need to move that documentation into the cloud or somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just, we did it just to recap or rebase and go, right, okay, fine. We all understand what it means.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point, because things might have changed. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's holding each other accountable for keeping the same quality. So.
I'm thinking about statistically, is there something that you might see? So if you just look at your cycle times, so one of the ways we talk about our definition of done is what it means to transition between our different development steps.
Yeah.
And you might see some work kind of getting stuck in certain steps. So like maybe code reviews before, that might have been very conversational, a lot more pairing.
Yeah.
Now it might be more of a chuck it over the fence and it's just kind of sat there. And maybe you might kind of see that starting to increase that time in code review, and that might prompt a discussion actually.
So do you track your item age?
Yeah, so we look at our overall cycle time from when we start to when we finish, but then we also look at the time transitioning between each step. So that's something I've been looking at and saying, well, this is how it was before and this is how it is now. Has anything changed? Why, if it has changed, why has that changed? Is there something that we should be doing differently now? So like with the code review example, do we need to kind of adapt to us not being able to necessarily do it as quickly as we were before, where you just turn to the person next to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other questions that came up quite a lot was that how do you kind of spot whether an issue or a challenge is kind of lockdown related versus whether you're always going to hit that bump in the road anyway? What kind of tips do you have for maybe what measures to put in place, what data to look at, or how to approach that?
So one of the ones that I've been monitoring is just the velocity with the team. And so if the velocity had gone down, I think it's almost as simple as just asking the team, like, what do you make of this? It looks like the velocity is lower than it was a few sprints ago. What do you think? And I just think that you shouldn't necessarily make assumptions that, oh, it's because we're all working from home. There's context to these things. There's lots of potential reasons why that might have happened. Someone might have left the team that kind of just before. You might be doing a new piece of work where there's new using new technologies or new knowledge for the team. That might be a reason why things are potentially slowing down a bit. So I think just having those kind of open and honest conversations and trying to understand why that might have happened.
Yeah, but I think, you know, looking at cycle time, items moving across the board, velocity is okay to look at. It's just indication of throughput, and it's relevant at the time. But looking at actually our cycle time, if that's changing, if we're seeing delays in our queues, and there's always a delay in a queue anyway, is that growing? You know, you're talking earlier about those code reviews and things, are they taking longer because we're not physically sitting next to each other or whatever? So looking at how long things are aging, and then you could possibly then start extrapolating, well, that's because we're not focusing on that, or we're physically not next to each other, so we're not getting that mental reminder, or we don't have that physical board in our vision, in our way. With the I saw a great thing where somebody put a banana skin on a ticket and it watched it age, and it went browner and browner and browner. And he's like, yeah, that's been in play for some time. What's going on there? Obviously you can't do that remotely. We could, but everybody stick a banana on this fake card you've got behind you. But it's a great visual indication. If you can't do that, how do you make it? So issues specific to lockdown, yeah, it's all about throughput, I would say. But also I've possibly got more issues around how the team's working. And there, is there some misunderstanding? Is somebody actually isolating themselves from the rest of the team? When was the last time you spoke to Bob? Yesterday in the daily scrum. Oh, right. That's a bit strange. Well, let's go, those access to stuff, or there's a misunderstanding or availability of those people, they would be specific to lockdown. And there are things that you need to look at. If someone's maybe a little bit more quieter, and if someone's struggling, and they could be new to the team, or they could be new to the area, and they're struggling with a piece of work and they don't feel confident enough to speak up. And there's a problem. Because, as Tom and myself would be looking around and saying, how's the team interacting? One of the roles of the Scrum Master is to see what's going on. And this links back into one of the questions earlier, how do you get those interactions when you're not physically there? So I think we need to start thinking a little bit outside the box, outside the norms, and checking in with people. And maybe also looking into other people, saying, when was the last time you spoke to so-and-so? When was the last time? Are you noticing any changes in behavior in people? Maybe pick up on those. So it's very easy to start getting misunderstandings as well. One of the things that I said with one of the teams was like, let's not forget our please and thank yous. Let's remember that what you might write in text or in Slack might seem perfectly normal to you, but you may upset somebody by just, whatever. And you go, yeah, whatever. But they've read it as whatever. Yeah, something on those lines. So it's picking up on those things as well. But it's difficult when you are remote. I would say they were specific to lockdown.
I think I read something that said, assume that people read things in a worse way that it could be perceived.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Or, one of them question from Dave, which is interesting, who asks, do we think that that being remote would make people who are more naturally introvert anyway even more introverted? That's Dave's question. I wonder whether it might have the opposite effect, and actually people that might be introverted feel like, because there isn't that real life interaction, that speaking to somebody through a screen is maybe less emotive than being in a room.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I guess that's more just my opinion on the situation, that not having to necessarily look someone face to face might actually be easier for some people.
Yeah, this is like breaking up via text, isn't it? This is kind of it's much easier.
It's not you, it's me.
That's not to say that I obviously it should be something that you look out for and try and spot as a team or as a Scrum Master, and try and make those people feel as comfortable as possible to try and interact with people.
But I think it could also be, introverted, extroverted people may struggle as well. It's those people that thrive in teams and thrive on having that dynamic have now suddenly lost it, or don't have it, or they have it for 15 minutes, or they're constantly on chat, or they're constantly in talking. I don't know, maybe they could struggle equally as well. I think it might be common across both. But then I've worked with people that are introverted and would absolutely love this, because they can get their heads down, they can concentrate on their work, they're not getting disturbed by a Scrum Master constantly coming around saying, how are you doing, anything I can do, and all those kinds of things. So it's, you know, it might be their ideal bliss.
What about fear of the camera? It kind of links to one of the questions that Scott has asked, actually. So some people are natural, on film. Some people don't really like knowing that there's this little thing in here that everyone can see me through. What do you think about that?
We made a rule at Yorkshire Water: if we're doing a scrum, we're on camera. We would do face-to-face anyway. If we're in the office, we're on camera. Some people are saying, "Oh, my broadband's not strong enough," and all this kind of stuff. And go, "Hey, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens." And you know, face-to-face communication is better than not doing it, because you can see what people are doing. You know, like, none of us, hopefully, have picked up our phones whilst we've been talking. We've been talking. Everybody else that's on the call may have done and looked at stuff, but you know, we've been giving each other focus. You turn that camera off, and all of a sudden you've got oh no, I can see me, and I'm on the phone, or I'm doing something. Now, interestingly, I think Zoom can tell the host, I don't know if this is true, but can tell the host if somebody has flipped off the presentation onto something else. I think it's after a minute or 30 seconds or something along those lines. In fact, I'm going to have a play around with that, because somebody at scrum.org was saying that to me, and I'm going to check that out, because that'd be really useful to know. Whether or not I would do anything with that, I don't know. So, but I suppose it comes down to the Scrum Masters reading the room, and I suppose it is that. It's reading if people are still interested and still engaged. I mean, I did a talk with Scott yesterday, not Scott yesterday, but Scott Oliver yesterday. And it was really difficult doing a presentation because I could not read the room. The only thing that gave me any guidance was the fact that people were still sticking around, but I couldn't read if they're engaged or anything like that. If you've got a camera, you can read if they're engaged and what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think where possible, people should put their cameras on, because it creates more engagement in what's being said.
Lots of people are taking note. I can see lots of people are now turning cameras on, appearing on screen.
I know, but that's really off-putting for us, because it was just us talking and everybody appeared.
A cool thing I saw when someone's doing a presentation, I've forgotten it all, so this probably isn't that much use to mention, but this person was doing a slide presentation, and they had this tool which kind of virtually cut them out and then imposed them over the slides. So they were still kind of getting that engagement where the people watching it could see them, and they were still able to kind of have the presentation up and kind of be talking through the points. And they were actually kind of moving themselves around so you could see their arm pointing at the different points.
Oh, wow.
So that was just about like how, if we're doing a presentation remotely, how can we kind of make it even more engaging so that they're not just looking at slides, they're looking at me presenting this thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask everyone to turn their camera off for a few minutes. We're going to cover one last point, and then we're going to come all back on for questions, if that's all right. Cool. So, yeah, the last kind of point that came up, and then we'll kind of go to Q&A, was what could we do to make use of any extra capacity that we might find that we have during this period? And I think that the context of that is that, you know, maybe there are just less requirements coming through from the business, or maybe projects have been paused, and so our teams find themselves with a little bit more capacity than they would usually be used to. What tips do you have to kind of use that time wisely? Steve, what do you think?
Thanks. I mean, obviously there's the things you can do, and you know, you start paying down tech debt, because every product has got tech debt in it, regardless of how healthy you've tried to keep it. There is always that thing that, you know, you've decided, oh, well, it'll just be fine, we'll fix it. We could do experiments. We could do we could carry on as per the expectations that we've set. And this was a difficult question for me. Like, you know, why are we assuming we're getting extra capacity due to reduced pressure? Maybe we're getting more pressure because we've got colleagues, friends who maybe aren't available. Maybe they're ill. Or maybe what's happened actually is that those key projects, and this certainly happened at Yorkshire Water, they suddenly became more of a priority, and we lost people from the team to go support other projects, to support other products. So we, in theory, our product was less of a priority, but we still had those timescales. We still had to deliver for regulatory things, but we lost people. So in fact, our pressure kind of increased a little bit more. If you are in that fortunate position where you're twiddling your thumbs though and going, well, hey, this is brilliant, this is like Christmas, there's always tech debt. There are always experiments. There are always things you could be doing, improving the documentation, understanding what's going on. Hey, maybe why don't you spend some time with the developers that specialize in testing and understand how they do their role, or the UX people, how they understand their role, and start learning different skills. So you start cross-populating all those ideas and you start improving yourself. You're still working on the product, but you're starting to get experience of other things. Just so that when we, you can help out, and actually when we come out of this, you're going to have a few more skills to your bow, strings to your bow, that you can rely on and start using, and have a greater appreciation.
Tom, have you found yourself in that position, or not really?
No, not really. Our kind of roadmap of work continues, but I agree.
If you had the luxury, what would you do?
I agree with the points that Steve was saying. So quality, things like tech debt, focus on learning within the team, and the things that we can invest in ourselves to learn about, and experimentation. And I think that the cool thing about experimentation is the reason why something got mothballed is probably because it's not a priority anymore. So what is the priority? Through experimentation, you might find new opportunities, new things to do that are actually valuable now. So that's kind of going back to the root of like how we work. Let's come up with an idea, try it out, see if that works. If it does, let's build upon that, and hopefully we can use this time to get something valuable.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Right, we've got 10 minutes left. Let's try and experiment ourselves. So if everyone would like to unmute themselves, reveal themselves on camera, we'll see how this works. Sorry, Tom, I know you wanted to just see 3 of us, didn't you, on the screen? I'm afraid there is an audience. Here they all are. So I guess if you mute yourselves unless you have a question, and then we'll just fastest finger first in terms of unmuting and asking. Who would like to kick us off?
Hello, I think I'm not on mute, am I? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
So as per the chat, I'm trying to self-train during my spare time at no cost to get the Scrum Master. I'm a general project manager, a lot of experience. Been in a position about 3 times where it's been a kind of informal Scrum scenario, and I thought it'd be an idea to get the qualification. So I've got the Scrum Guide. I've been pointed towards scrum.org. There are lots of other resources around to read, and I'm struggling to stay awake reading them. Are there any other decent resources around, or is the Scrum Guide really all that you need, and it's about developing that deeper understanding of the content? And also, are there any guidance on the best free practice test before I commit to the exam?
Yeah, so at scrum.org, sorry, Tom, do you want to take this one? At scrum.org, there is an open assessment for the PSM, which I think is 30 questions, and that's a pool of questions from the live one. It'll give you a flavour of what's to do. So the Scrum Guide is the rules of Scrum, but there is also another really great book, and I'm trying to find it, by Gunther Verheyen, and it's the Pocket Guide to Scrum. It's that one there. On Amazon, it is about £14.99. It's like the Scrum Guide Plus, so I'd really encourage you to get that. It talks about Agile, how it's come about, but it adds more into the Scrum Guide. So if you find yourself a copy of that book, Gunther Verheyen, Pocket Guide to Scrum. Gunther is another PST, and that is my go-to book. in order to pass the assessment, it comes down to experience and knowledge. So it depends on your experience as well. But read this, read the Scrum Guide, go from there, I would say.
Just show me that title again.
Sorry.
A Smart Travel Companion. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
my go-to book.
Yeah,
So.
I've been looking at that assessment. Yeah, I think it's scenarios that I need practice of, in absence of real world, project management roles, where it's been a formal Scrum Master. So it is a scenarios. Does that contain?
No, not this. There's more the theory and things like that. So the scenarios, unfortunately, it comes down to experience. But what we're doing is, what we're not trying to do is trick you on your knowledge. We're just trying to judge your knowledge and understanding of Scrum. If you pass the PSM1, it's 80 questions in 60 minutes, pass mark of 85%. We're not trying to trick you. We're just trying to make sure that you understand Scrum to the appropriate level that we believe you should have to be a professional Scrum Master.
Thank you.
So hopefully that's helped.
Very much, thank you.
Okay. I wish I had shares in this book, the amount of times I actually give it out in courses and recommend it. So.
Okay, I'm just going to, thanks for the advice, Scott. I'm going to mute everyone, and then if anyone has a question, just let me know. I'll unmute you. In fact, you can unmute yourselves if you have a question.
Sorry, I just, Steve, you touched on revisiting the definition of done. I just wondered if anyone had any experience touching on the kind of working contract that you have, if anyone's got that, and, obviously change of working, if anyone's had any experience with the, working contract, how we kind of work in this new scenario, new surroundings, if that was a good idea.
I would definitely revisit it, have a look, make sure people understand this is what we think as a team that we should be working as. So it's re-baselining again, and just refreshing people that, hey, we are supposed to be doing this, and we're going to hold each other accountable. One of the teams that I did this with in the NHS, it was the first time I did it, we actually got people to sign it as well. And it's difficult when you're doing it remotely, but by the physical signing of something, it puts people's mind in that state of, actually, I'm going to agree to this. And then that allows people to have those conversations. Well, you signed this, why are you doing it? But yeah, just recap it. And you could do that as a working session over Zoom, or just, this is, take a picture. This is what we've got. Anyone agree? Anyone disagree? Anybody surprised by what we've got? Or actually, what about if you start afresh and have one for working remotely? How are we going to work remotely? And maybe use a liberating structure to come up with the ideas, just so that group thinking allows it to bubble up to the top, the top 10 things how we're going to work.
Yeah, that was something we did on kind of day one of everyone working from home, was just what's our new way of working, what the kind of basic things, like how are we going to communicate with each other, how are we going to know when you're not working, not talking over each other during video calls, trying to turn on videos when possible, just re-establishing, like, this is how we work.
That's useful. Do you have any kind of examples, experiences of something that changed drastically in terms of how you normally work? Tom?
I don't unfortunately, no, but so I could imagine. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. To be honest, things have remained, apart from like how we're using technology and communicating with each other, things have remained broadly similar. Maybe one of the big things is the hours that people do, that kind of flexibility of just making sure that you let people know if you're looking after kids, or you just want an extended break to kind of go outside for a walk. That's okay. Just let people know that when you're doing that. Where I guess when we're in the office, it was kind of core hours are just 10 to 4. So yeah, as a team, we kind of just agreed that we're a bit more flexible on that.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, that runs us pretty much bang up to 1 o'clock. So thanks everyone for attending. Thanks especially for Tom and Steve for agreeing to come on and share your insight and expert Agile and Scrum knowledge. Just a heads up, so this is the first in the series of webinars that we've put together. So we currently have 6 scheduled. So if anyone would like to head over to our Eventbrite page, you'll see that there's one tomorrow, which is around discussion of security implications of going serverless. And we've got a talk on accessibility testing. We've got a talk around how consultancy and leads are using super rad low-code tooling and machine learning to help with the COVID-19 fight. The JVM thing has gone online, so that's a Java-based event that we've been running kind of regularly for some time now, which is part of Leeds Digital Festival, which is obviously all now an online series of events. And then we have one on the 1st of May, which is getting job fit, which is some hints and tips around anyone that might need to start getting their profile in order to look at the employment market as it bounces back. Having said that, there are still companies that have been able to continue to both recruit and onboard digitally, which I guess is one of the benefits of working in the tech industry, that companies can pivot that quickly. So take a look, register for any that sound interesting. If you yourself would like to do a talk, or you've got some topics that you'd like us to source an expert speaker on, then get in touch. Really kind of open to ideas. Sounds like we're going to get another 3 weeks extension, doesn't it, today? So yeah, great. We'll be able to put on some more of these for everyone too. So thank you again. We will drop you an email, so feedback is really important to us so that we know that we're on the right track and that we're putting things together that people enjoy and see value in. So again, thanks to everyone. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Steve, and perhaps see you at another one of these events.